for the upcoming crop year. These counties' offices still require employees to work from home. U.S. Department of Agriculture employees have to meet with farmers to go over detailed maps of their land, making it nearly impossible even with video calls. I've received letters from farmers and USDA employees alike who are frustrated that they can't have in-person meetings. We all know that backlogs persist across the federal government and show no signs of abating. The National Personnel Records Center, responsible for providing service records to veterans seeking their benefits, has not been fully staffed since March of 2020. They have a backlog of records, those requests that are so massive that it would take years to correct. For 2 years now, the agency has been processing emergency requests only, while the other requests just pile up. This agency needs employees in the office to function. They're currently staffed at just 25% capacity. They have announced that they will not return to full operational status until, quote, public health emergency has ended, end of quote. Now, who knows when that will happen? I guess veterans waiting to finish their application for benefits will just have to wait as well. Now, we know the abysmal record of the IRS. It only answered 9% of its calls, and those are called customer support calls. They're already warning that this tax filing season is going to be a mess for those filing, and there is still a backlog of unprocessed returns from last year, and yet thousands of IRS employees remain out of the office. Those trying to become U.S. citizens have been stuck in limbo for years. Records that the USCIS needs to process their applications are locked in the federal records centers, which are only open 25% of capacity. Even the few agencies that have announced a plan to return to in-person work are not acting with any sense of urgency. The Social Security Administration announced the reopening of field offices in April. So I guess they figure those who have already been waiting for 2 years can wait another few months. My staff that helps Iowans with their casework told me that the average number of days to get assistance from a federal agency has doubled now to 335 days. It takes almost a year to get an issue with a federal agency resolved. This is completely unacceptable. In the spring of 2020, it seemed as if there was no choice. Caution at that time was warranted. But I might remind the heads of federal agencies that even at that time, millions of Americans did not work from home. We saw it on television all the time, and you still a problem in a lot of places. Not enough nurses, doctors, but regardless, they didn't work from home. Nurses, doctors, and first responders still went to work in person. Employees at grocery stores, delivery drivers, and warehouse workers still showed up to work in person at the height of this pandemic when nobody really knew what was all involved. For millions of Americans, working from home was never an option. Their jobs were essential, and they continued to work to keep our society and economy functioning. While some federal employees may be able to do their job effectively from home, the persistent lack of responsiveness from federal agencies make it clear that not all can work from home. It is certainly not acceptable to tell taxpayers that they must wait for services that they need because those in charge are too skittish to make a return to work plan. It's past time for agencies and their heads to set a date for employees to return to serving the people in person. That's why I was very glad to join Senator Wicker in a introduction of a bill that he calls by the acronym Return Act, which would require agencies to share their plans to bring back the workforce within 30 days. I would urge my colleagues to support this bill and get the government back to work. I also urge President Biden, and when I bring up the word President Biden, don't forget some of this stuff started under a Trump administration, continued today. So this is not just a Democrat problem when I say President Biden. But I also urge President Biden, now in charge, to follow the example of Iowa's Governor Reynolds and show leadership on this matter. Iowa schools have been fully open in Iowa for more than a year. Governor Reynolds has ended the state's public health disaster emergency proclamation. This doesn't mean ignoring the spread of COVID-19 going forward. Of course, there should be accommodation for those at high risk, but there is absolutely no justification for maintaining a state of emergency as if it were still March of 2020. Taxpayers have a right to have their government be responsive. Americans are back to work. It's time for the federal government to catch up. I yield.